A flee in a motor vehicle in Minnesota is a felony charge, and there are some things that go along with it that the courts and prosecutor are not required to tell you and that are at risk. And this is why it's a good idea to have a lawyer in a case like this. Number one, if you plead guilty or are found guilty of a flee in a motor vehicle in Minnesota, you will lose your driver's license for 1 year. You'll be revoked for 1 year. You can get a work permit after 6 months if the judge agrees with that. The judge is not required to agree to it, and you have to petition for that separately. So just know that if you plead guilty or are found guilty of it, you're going to lose your license for 1 year or at least 6 months and then have a work permit for the other 6 months. The second thing is if you plead guilty to a flee in a motor vehicle or you're found guilty of it, you will forfeit your car. It doesn't matter if your car is worth $40,000 or worth $4,000. If you flee in a motor vehicle, you're going to face forfeiture and lose that car. There is a way to challenge the forfeiture as well and argue that it's an unconstitutional taking because the dollar value of the car is so high that it doesn't fit the crime, but that's a challenge that you'd have to make, and there's certain ways that you have to file that forfeiture challenge, but just know your car is at risk, especially if you plead guilty to it. And the third thing is, of course, that it can end up with a felony conviction because it is a felony crime. And if you have a felony conviction, whether that's during the period of probation only and then it converts to a misdemeanor, or if it's a lifetime felony, regardless, you're going to have a lot of other problems, including finding work, keeping work, being able to have certain parental rights sometimes, being able to live in certain places like some townhomes or associations or apartment buildings, and a whole other bunch of problems that felonies carry as well. So those are 3 things to watch out for that the courts and prosecutor are not required to tell you about if you plead guilty to a flee in a motor vehicle. There are some defenses. Sometimes these go along with intoxicated driving. And so I've had cases, for example, where a client has been drunk, and then there's a police chase that happens, and the client sometimes is so inebriated that they don't even realize for a while the police are behind him. They pull over once they kind of come to and realize that, and they get charged both with a DWI and a flee in a motor vehicle. There is an intoxication defense to a flee in a motor vehicle. It's not a perfect defense. It doesn't work in every case, but the police aren't supposed to be able to have it 2 ways, or the prosecutors. They can't say, well, you're so drunk that you're not okay to drive, but also you knew what you were doing enough to flee. Sometimes people are drunk enough where they really didn't realize that they kept driving or that the police were trying to get their attention. It's like I said, it's not a perfect defense. There are situations where someone can be over the limit or slightly impaired and they still know that they're trying to get away from the police. That's when it's not a perfect defense, but that defense does operate under the law. It's called the voluntary intoxication defense. There's other cases I've had where we've gotten not guilty verdicts because the government can't prove that the person was really trying to take evasive action. So for one, the police have to give you a signal. That can be their police lights on. Sometimes you call that the cherries. That can be a police siren, or it can be something else that the police are yelling at you to stop or pull over or things like that. But you have to know that they were signaling you. If they're signaling you but they're a mile behind on the road with their cherries and you don't see them, that doesn't cut it. They have to prove that you knew that there was a signal and that you kept going despite the signal, whether that's by continuing to drive, speeding up to get out of there, hiding, like darking out your lights in your car and hiding somewhere or something like that. You have to be taking some sort of evasive action, basically to not acknowledge that the police are trying to get you to pull over or to stop you. So those are the basics for a felony flee in Minnesota. If you have any questions or need any tips or need a consultation about a flee in a motor vehicle, either for you or a family member, you can always shoot me an email, ryan@arrestedmn.com. That's ryan@arrestedmn.com. You can go to my website. I'll have that listed here. Or you can call me at 612-339-5844.